Hello, this is Blake. So this is my first movie review. Naturally, it's going to be about a film that is a comic book adaptation.
Bloodshot!
From Valiant Comics. I was never a fan, even though I do have some books from Valiant, like Shadow Man, Solar, or is it Solar? Exo Man-O-War, Archer and Armstrong. There were other books like Turok, Son of Stone, and Magnus Robot Fighter that originated back in the 1960s, I believe, with Gold Key, maybe? Bloodshot always seemed like one of Valiant's lower tier characters to me, but I understand why this was what Valiant would choose to start with for live action entertainment. This film did have a modest budget, even though it's a Sony product. It's like $36 million, I think, $45 million. The cast with Vin Diesel in the starring role, it's probably not that expensive. This is just a guess, but I would expect that it costs more to get Guy Pearce for his role than it costs to get Vin Diesel at this point in his career. I could be wrong though. The cinematography was kind of that default look of mostly slick looking earth tones that have permeated action and war films for a couple of decades. I think David Fincher was one of the people that started perfecting that look with movies like Seven, The Game, Fight Club, and Zodiac. The effects are fine until it starts to look like a video game where the people are obviously 3D models. I'm fine with that. I figure all these production decisions were based on this being Valiant's first foray into celluloid. The main two problems, I think, are that it just doesn't have a good script, and it has a first-time director, David S.F. Wilson. Why does he have two middle names? I don't know. I think the writer was aspiring to make this a little different. The story was aiming to be a little trippier, a la The Matrix, or maybe two of Paul Verhoeven's films, Total Recall or RoboCop, which I think this movie borrows heavily from. And I mean the original versions, not the two substandard remakes that they made in the last 10 years. Those suck. Getting to the story. Vin Diesel plays a badass Marine. Am I being redundant there? Probably. Sorry, I have to stop right there. Usually in superhero films like this, where someone gains abilities well beyond normality, you first depict them as somewhat ordinary, so as to highlight the superhuman aspects of what they become. But here you get Vin Diesel, action star, who is not far removed from the superhero he becomes, and actually they never show him as a normal person. He basically just takes out a hive of terrorists himself and ends a hostage situation with no one to help him. And watching this, I thought it was a little odd because I was wondering where the rest of his unit were and why he wouldn't wait for at least a few other soldiers to arrive. He also gets shot at the end of the first sequence. So Bloodshot wakes up and he realizes that he has been brought back literally from the dead by a scientist named Emil Hartley, played by Guy Pearce, who runs a company with an alphabetically ordered acronym called RST. He was killed and now he has amnesia. What was I saying? He's been given superhuman abilities derived from millions of microscopic nanobytes that repair damage, and they augment his physical capabilities and connect him to computers and the intranets. Anyway, he meets an ally in KT, a former Navy diver who has been similarly augmented, played by the lovely Elza Gonzalez, who needs absolutely no augmentation whatsoever. She's just fine how she is. KT tries to pep him up a little bit just before he hears a song that reminds him how he got, or so he thinks. Everything just comes flooding back, and he tears out of the building with revenge on his mind, which very much reminded me of the original RoboCop, where you have a dutiful police officer who was killed in the line of duty and is resurrected as a cyborg who's had his memory erased, but soon has his memory triggered, and he remembers his life before along with the ones who murdered him and took it all away. Biggest difference between that film and this one is that it has a story that was about something. A guy who has his identity stripped away literally becomes valuable only as a product in a corporate society, and he fights back to regain some sense of his individualism. It's a great movie, and it's a satire, an action film, it's a science fiction film, and it might be one of the best superhero movies ever made, and you never hear it talked about. But you You should go watch that one if you haven't. But back to this one. Bloodshot only aims to see if Vin Diesel can up his nanobite power enough to destroy his enemies. I mean, that's really what the movie's about. I mean, I think I can't really say it's about anything noteworthy or there's anything below the surface, really. They take a lot of ideas from other movies, like I said, Total Recall and RoboCop, and, you know, with implanted memories and your memory being erased, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But, you know, all the movies that I'm mentioning are far better than this one. There's a lot more wrong with the story. There's a character named Wiggins who's never mentioned until he shows up more than halfway into the film, and he sort of solves all of Bloodshot's problems whenever the plot requires it. There's even some confusing things about him, and where KT decides to go find Wiggins to enlist his aid, and she finds him being held by a bunch of bad guys, and she has to free him, but Vin Diesel had already freed him and been helped by the guy, and he was no longer their hostage who was coding for them. So I don't know what was going on. I don't know if it was, you know, out of sequence or something, but he even explains the connection of his former captor with Dr. Hartley, the Guy Pearce character. It's so subtle that if you blink, you'll miss it. There just seems to be parts missing from the story, and not enough foreshadowing to clue in the audience to the important plot points. Did I sound like Christopher Walken right there? Or some of the things, just like with the guy with the mechanical limbs. Why is he such an ass? There seems to be something there with, you know, some of the other characters' comments, but I don't know. Why did the director choose to waste time on penis inadequacy jokes? There was one whole scene dedicated to one of the coding nerds asking about getting his penis enlarged. Had nothing to do with the rest of the movie, but they wasted time to show you that.
Do you think I could get some kind of RST tech installed on my body?
Why? Is there a particular part of your body that needs augmentation?
Hey, Eric.
No, never mind.
But really, I mean, bringing up this guy, it would probably have made more sense for the Wiggins character to be that character. So he would have already been working for RST, and then you would have seen him at the beginning of the movie, and he wouldn't just been, you know, dropped out of the sky in the second half. There are other scene missteps, like the extremely goofy intro to Bloodshot's would-be killer dancing in his Birkenstocks. This just stood out from the rest of the film. I probably had the same reaction that Hank Hill would have had to that, but the movie might have benefited by having a little more of that, because a lot of the stuff is so stale, and it's just getting from point A to point B, and everyone seems kind of in sedated mode, that some of the goofy stuff added on to it, like maybe Sam Raimi directing this would have benefited this film a little bit. But I think if or maybe you just cut that and all the pointless scenes and make it a leaner, tighter movie. Might have made it a better film. I guess the other thing I didn't like was the writer reminding the viewer that it's just a movie. That was, you know, all the rage in the early 2000s, to be meta. That was mostly writers who didn't like the genre they were working in, and they wanted to let you know that they were aware of all the cliches in that particular genre as they were doing the cliches.
You've already ripped off every movie cliche there is. I think Psycho Killer and a dancing lunatic in a slaughterhouse is plenty.
I would rather not be reminded that I'm watching a movie when I'm watching a movie. I like it when it seems the filmmakers are taking it seriously and not half-assing it. If I wanted half-ass filmmaking, I'd just do it myself. There are some good things about Bloodshot. It is a superhero film, and it's not R-rated, and maybe I'm being a little hard on it, or a little harder than I should. I like Vin Diesel, and he's okay here when it doesn't look like the director has sedated him and the other actors. The women in the film get pretty much the shortest shrift, where they're all mainly just there to look hot. They are, though, so they succeeded there, I guess. Where was I? Anyway, the action scenes were adequate. The finale was okay, even with it looking like a video game, where you could clearly see the people were not people, they were video game characters. But overall, this isn't a terrible effort. I think they were shooting for something cool, something different, and they came up a little short. I do look forward to seeing Valiant's next effort, whether it's with Sony or Paramount or however they get the next one out. I just hope it's a little better than this one. I did want to like this. I didn't hate it. And I would even say if you're a fan of the comics, you might like it just to see the character realized on screen. I myself saw the first X-Men film 5 times at the movie theater. Not because I liked it, because I was it was just fun seeing the characters in the background that I recognized, like Kitty Pryde going through the wall, or Jubilee sitting in the classroom or something. Overall, I didn't really care for this, and it was hard to get through actually at times. But so that's it. My first movie review. I think I need to make sure I like the next one I watch before I review it, or else everyone's going to think I'm just negative about everything. I mentioned a lot of good movies I liked. I mean, check out Total Recall, RoboCop, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. There's a lot of great films out there, but this one is not one of them. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.
I'd buy that for $1.